who do you say I am? These are the words of Yeshua to Peter in the book of Matthew. And I want to read this section real quick because I just want to make sure I get it right. So in Matthew chapter 16, verse 15 is what I'm really reading about, but I'm going to go back to verse 13. Now when Yeshua came into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his taught ones, saying, Who do men say the son of Adam is? And they said, Some say Yohanan the Immerser, and others Eliyahu, and others Yirmiyahu, or one of the prophets. He said to them, And you, who do you say I am? And Shimon Kepha answering said, You are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yeshua answering said to him, Blessed are you, Shimon Bar Yonan, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in the heavens. And I also say to you that you are Kepha, and on this rock I shall build my assembly, and the gates of Sheol shall not overcome it. Now I'm using the scriptures translation, just so you know, so you can go back and read that. But I really wanted to spend some time on this section today because it does go with the Torah portion and the prophet portion and the gospel portion for the week that I follow, but also because I've had this question in my mind before. Why was this revealed to Peter? Like, how did he come to know this? I mean, Yeshua says that it wasn't flesh and blood that revealed it, but his Father in the heavens. So this idea that being able to see the Lord, you have to have the Lord in order to see. Okay, so why? How? And it, I want to always see through the revelation of the Lord. I want that. I want to be like Peter. And I believe that's critical for our fellowship, for our church, our one body in Christ. It has to start here. We have to have eyes like Peter, but we also have to have eyes like the scouts in this week's Torah portion, and like the spies and Rahab, and also like Peter, all right, and the apostles, but not the apostles, just the apostles, but the people who received them when they would go into the cities. I want to have eyes like that, to be able to see what the Lord is showing me in every single situation. How do I do that? I want that because I want to be close to him. I don't want to be close to the world. I want to be close to him. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. And how, because we need to be practical about it. And the importance of how we reject what the world is trying to show us versus what God is showing us. It's a choice. So I want to kind of go into some of that. And I really was expecting to talk about all of the things that the scouts did in the book of in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, which is what we read for the Torah portion this week, which is Numbers chapter 13 through chapter 15, verse 41. But why did these two scouts, now I don't know if everyone listening is aware of what this section of Numbers is going into, so I'm just going to kind of recap it, but I want you to read it, because don't take my word for it. Read it, make sure that you understand everything, because sometimes I miss things, and sometimes, you'll see something that I don't. But basically, Moses, in this chapter, Moses is told to send out men to spy into the land of Canaan. And he tells certain spies to go out and to come back with a report. And all of the reports were kind of scary, right? They were, there's these big people, the children or the descendants of Nephilim and whatnot, and oh no, right? Except for Caleb and Joshua. And I think it was Joshua. Let me see. Um, so they all saw the same thing. Yes, there was going to be war. There was going to be a fight. But these other scouts, they saw the fear of what they should be afraid of, right? That they should just, like, don't do it. But then these two scouts, these two spies, they said, yes, but we can do this. We can do this, guys. Oh, I better move this camera because it's sitting somewhere that is moving when I move. So I'm going to scooch this over here. Sorry about that, guys. There, this is a little bit better. Okay, so let me turn a little bit. All right, so make sure that's even. Okay, so what do we do, right? Like, why did these scouts have courage, but these other scouts did not? Okay, so at the end of chapter 15, we see another commandment that I think is so important. And this is where I really didn't expect to go this week, but I think it's important. So we're going to do that. And in verse 38, 37, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them to make a tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue cord in the tzitzit of the corner. And it shall be to you for a tzitzit, and you shall see it, and shall remember all the commands of the Lord, and shall do them, and not search after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you went whoring, so that you remember and shall do all my commandments, and be set apart unto your Elohim. I am the Lord your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am the Lord your Elohim. Now, they had the commandments. They knew what they were supposed to do, and yet the Lord wants them to make these items to put on the corners of their garments. And I've heard teachings about what this is and why and all of these things. None of it quite sat right with me because of this word tekelet, blue, right? It's blue. And why was it so important to put a thread of blue in that? And I think this is the key to it all. This is the key to being able to see Messiah, to see the promised land the way the spies did, for Rahab to see the power and the mighty of Adonai, for the people in those cities when the apostles came to bring the good news, they were able to see it. What is this tekelet? This is the key. This is my opinion. I could be wrong. It doesn't actually say what this symbolizes. So this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but I think there's some truth to it. Pray about it and see what you think. So I've thought about tekelet a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I thought, well, it's love, right? I thought, it's love. But that never quite set right with me either. Not that it was wrong, but that it wasn't quite right. And, I say the word feeling, but it's more like sensation. The sense that, that's not complete. Let's take a look at this deeper. And I'm glad I did this week. Because actually this morning, this is Shabbat today, and I had thought about all this other stuff, but this came up to me today when I was reading the entire Torah portion, and this being at the very end of it. Tekelet. Okay, so let's look at tekelet a little bit more, because I want to reference another time that this word tekelet is used. I mean, it's used many times in the description of some of the items in the tabernacle, but a while back, I was listening to a teacher, and they asked this question about, what stands out to you about the attire of the high priest. And everyone else was talking about, oh, the breastplate and all of this. But what stood out to me the most was this verse. And this was a long time ago, so I can't remember the entire context of that teaching, but I want to go to this particular verse. In chapter 28, verse 28, it says, "And they bind the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the shoulder garment, using a blue cord." Now, this word blue is tikelet, the same cord of blue, thread of blue that's in this required item that we're supposed to wear on the edges of our garments. Okay, so let me go back and read that. "And they bind the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the shoulder garment using a blue cord, so that it is above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, so that the breastplate does not come loose from the shoulder garment." Okay, so a thread of blue holds everything together, everything together. And then we see it again in the requirement in this Torah portion where it says, "So that we can remember all the commands of the Lord and shall do them, and not search after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you went whoring." Okay, so the commandments are important, but this thread of blue is essential. And we're going to come back to that. Just like it was essential to hold the breastplate in. So I'm going to go and skip a little bit further. Now, we see love brought up all the time in the New Testament, right? So, but we're going to come back to that. I also wanted to point out one other thing in Exodus chapter 28, and that is in verse 31, because the robe is also of blue, right? So the robe is, let's see, 28:31 says, "And you shall make the robe of the shoulder garment all of blue, of tikelet." All right. This reminded me of a verse in Colossians. Okay, so Colossians chapter 3, verse 9. "Do not lie to each other, since you have put off the old man with his practices, and have put on the new one, who is renewed in knowledge according to the likeness of him who created him, where there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, foreigner, Scythian, slave free, but Messiah is all and in all. Therefore, as chosen ones of Elohim, set apart and beloved, put on compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, patience, bearing with one another, and forgiving each other if anyone has a complaint against another. Indeed, as Messiah forgave you, so also should you. But above all these, put on love, which is a bond of the perfection, and let the peace of Elohim rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be filled with thanks." So the verse that really stood out to me was, "But above all these, put on love, which is a bond of the perfection." Put on love, right? Love that bonds all things together. What else would they use but love to tie the breastplate in place? But is it love? Because we hear these things like, well, you love evil. Well, then, is it love? And this is kind of where I got hung up on, is Kaylet symbolic of love? And I'm still not 100%, but I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm kind of going out on a limb here. And I want you guys to think about it. Get back to me, please. I'm open to discussion, trust. I was horrified recently, thinking maybe I understood something wrong. I want to make sure I understand it rightly. So I am open. But I don't know if it's love, as in what we consider love, but the love of the truth. Right? The love of the truth. We can love all sorts of things, but without the love of the truth, we can't see clearly. See, God is truth. And so when we love the truth, we're actually loving Him. And in my journey, I know that loving the truth is what got me here, right? I could have stayed in all sorts of different places. But when you really want the truth, you're going to come back here. You're going to get here. It may be a meandering, weird kind of journey, but if you really want the truth, you're going to end up here. And I recently saw that Johnny Cash had said something to that effect. And I thought, yay, Johnny Cash, because I do like his music. So, or at least some of it. And I thought about that. And I thought about these spies. I thought about Rahab. I thought about the people who saw the apostles. They wanted to see the truth, where other people wanted to see whatever. And I really stumbled on that. Why would they want to see that? I know, because I see things through the world's lens too. I mean, we all do it. We all do it. But I don't want to. I don't want to. So how do I see like Peter? How do I see Messiah? Right? It's what I want. And I think it comes back to that. Loving the truth. Because then God can speak through you. So let's look at this to Caleb. And this is something I thought about recently too. This last week. When we have knowledge. The spies all, not the spies, scouts, whatever you want to call them, that were sent out in this portion, Numbers chapter 13. They all had the same knowledge. They had the same knowledge of the enemy, but a completely different suggestion. Why? Right? Why did they have a completely different suggestion? They had the same knowledge. Loving knowledge and loving the truth are two entirely different things. We can love knowledge. Knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. But when you love the truth will set you free. Loving the truth is freedom. Why do you need power? Right? So I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that. But when we love the truth, we're going to be able to see what God wants us to see. And so now we're going to kind of talk about some other things, about what happens when we don't. And specifically in the gospel portion for this week, which is Matthew 10, verse 1 through 14. Okay, so Matthew chapter 10, I'm going to start at verse 5. Yeshua sent these 12 out, having commanded them, saying, "Do not go into the way of the nations, and do not enter a city of the Shamaronim, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, proclaim, saying, the reign of the heavens has drawn near. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. You have received without paying, give without being paid. Do not acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts, or a bag for the journey, or 2 undergarments, or sandals, or staffs, for the worker is worthy of his food. And into whatever city or village you enter, ask who is worthy in it, and stay there until you leave. And as you enter into a house, greet it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. And whoever does not receive you, nor hear your words, when you leave that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet." And that is the end of that section. Well, it's not the end of the chapter, but the reading for this week. I kind of wondered, shaking off the dust from your feet. And I had listened to a teaching once, and I was talking about the house and how the priests would go in and make sure a house that was um, unclean would be cleaned. And, I don't disagree with what they taught. I think that's a good analogy. But what I was thinking about this week, because of my last recording that I did, if you haven't seen it, a recording on how judgment is an actual form of witchcraft, and that it is unspoken, but it leaves a mark on someone. And even if you don't accept it, right? And I thought about the function of this particular curse, because that's what it is. When we judge, even when we sin against someone in our hearts, right? It puts it, we've already sinned against them. So, yeah, the judgment of others can affect you in your ministry. I know this is you're like, wait, right? But let's look at scripture, because I want to point something out that I never quite understood before. So in the book of Mark, chapter 6, I'm going to start here. I'll just start in the beginning of chapter 6. And he went away from there and came to his own country, and his taught ones followed him. And Sabbath having come, he began to teach in the congregation. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, Where did he get all this? And what wisdom is this which is given to him, that such miracles are done through his hands? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Miriam, and brother of Yaakov, and Joseph, and Yehuda, and Shimon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they stumbled in him. And Yeshua said to them, A prophet is not unappreciated except in his own country and among his own relatives and in his own house. And he was unable to do any miracles there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick ones and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he was going around among the villages teaching. And he called the 12 near and began to send them out by two. And the rest of that. So, think about this. This is Yeshua. And he was unable to do any miracles there. Wow. Something happened. I wondered about that. I'm like, he's Jesus. How? Well, let's look at what happened right before. Is this not the carpenter, the son of Miriam? They knew who he was. They decided they already knew who he was. They didn't love the truth of who he was. They loved the knowledge. This is who he is. I know who he is, right? And you go back to who do you say I am in Matthew 16:15. Look at this. What happens here right before that? And he in verse 13, now when Yeshua came into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his taught ones, saying, Who do men say the son of Adam is? And they said, Some say Yohanan, and the immerser, and others Eliyahu, and others Yirmiyahu, or one of the prophets. He said to them, And you, who do you say I am? See, these other people, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing that they were deciding or saying that he was, right? A prophet. That's not a bad thing. But it's still a judgment. They weren't seeing the truth. They were seeing the knowledge, but without the truth. We all have knowledge of things we experience. And our minds have to process that somehow. That's how we navigate the world. We have eyes to see and ears to hear. So how do we have understanding instead of judgment? Because I want to have understanding. I don't want to have judgment. The people in Jesus' town had judgment. They judged him. The people who spoke about Jesus, when he asked his disciples, what do people say about me? And they said, oh, you're this and you're that and you're this prophet. Right? And we just read about that in Matthew 16. And he says, some say Yohanan the Immerser, others Eliyahu, and others Yirmiyahu, or one of the prophets. See, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. This is what they said about him, but it wasn't true. See, so they were judging him, good or bad. They judged him, but they didn't understand. See, Peter, having the knowledge of Jesus with the love of the truth, had understanding that came from God. You have to have the love of the truth. You have to have the love of God in order to understand anything. Because see, he is the judge, the only judge. But when he is with us, because we love his truth, he is the truth, not his truth. He is the truth. When we have that, we're not judging. We are simply understanding his judgment. He already knew who Messiah was. It's Jesus, right? God knows. God only knows. So when we have knowledge, plus the love of the truth, we have understanding. But when we have knowledge without the love of the truth, we have judgment. I don't want to judge people. That's going to put that stuff on them. And so this is where I'm going to go back to this, to the spies, right? They saw the promised land. And the ones that had no love of the truth of God, right? They saw fear, right? They were afraid. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about fear today, but it was fear. But the other two, they saw the knowledge, but with the love of the truth of God, they were able to speak confidently of what would happen. Now, I've had people say, well, this is just the way the world is, and we just have to accept it and just kind of whatever. And that was very defeatist. That's not my God, right? You know, I know what he can do. And I'm not going to be in a place of fear or of acceptance of situations that I know are ungodly. I'm not going to do that because I know God can do all things. Right? I mean, I'm just going to walk in faith and in the love of the truth. That's what I want to do anyway. We all stumble, right? So what happened? They wanted to stone these guys, I believe. I can't remember now. But I'm pretty sure that's what it said when I was reading or listening to Numbers. I didn't actually read it in this in this translation. I listened to it. Sometimes it's just easier for me to listen to it because, well, life gets busy, right? So yes, in Numbers chapter 14, verse 10, but all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of the Lord appeared in the tent of appointment before all the children of Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, how long shall I be scorned by these people? And how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs which I have done in their midst? See, the congregation was going to stone these spies. They were going to stone them. We were going to kill them. What did we talk about in the last few recordings that I put up? Because people are going to hate you when you testify. They're going to stone you figuratively. In this case, they wanted to physically. They're going to judge you, throw that onto you. And if they succeed, right, and you leave without shaking that dust from you, the judgment that they put on you, it's going to affect how other people see you. So then, at the very end of the reading in Matthew, verse 10, Jesus tells his disciples to to shake the dust from their feet. What would be the purpose of that? The purpose, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, was not just to get their uncleanness off of them, because it got on them. Their judgment was put on them, and like in Jesus' hometown, where he was not able to perform those miracles, right? So he couldn't do what he needed to do. And so in verse 14 of chapter 10, and whoever does not receive you, nor hear your words, when you leave that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet. Okay, so whoever does not receive you nor hear your words. Now, I'm kind of applying this to a lot of other things, because these were people who were sent to share the good news. But this happens today too. Not everyone's ministry is to go and turn people to Jesus. I mean, we all are called to do that. But we have healers, we have teachers, we have people who want to just help in various ways. If somebody cannot see you for who you are in Christ accurately, then they're judging you, right? If you don't know something about someone, then reserve judgment. Just don't assume anything. But the second that you start to see them inaccurately, you are judging them. You have no understanding of them. And by default, you are accepting the world's view of them and thus rejecting. It says, whoever does not receive you, you're rejecting them in place of your judgment. So when you judge and you're throwing that onto that person, you're saying, oh, well, they can't be this because look, they're just the carpenter's son. Or look, he was a drug addict. And now he's going to tell me about this. You're judging. And even if you don't say a single word about your judgment in your heart, that has put on that person, and other people might be influenced by it. So, Yeshua tells us what to do. Shake the dust from your feet. Why? So that when you go into the next city, that judgment is not going to go with you. You're going to be able to do the things that he wanted you to do in that other house, in that other relationship. Don't allow the judgments of others to follow you around. You don't have to. Wipe it off. They judged me. That was unrighteous. I'm not taking that with me. Get yourself clean. Shake it off your feet. So that when you go to the next place, hopefully, people will be able to see you for who you are in Christ. And he'll be glorified. But don't think for a second that it can't happen to you. If it happened to Jesus himself, right here in these words, it happened to him. So don't think, oh, well, I am above all of that. Because I get this air of some Christians who act like they can't be affected by the witchcraft and sorcery of others. Okay, sure. But the people around you can be. It can affect your relationships with others. The miracles weren't happening. Everyone says it's because of their unbelief. That's what it says, right? He was, I'm in the wrong section, 16, chapter 16 of Matthew. For their unbelief. Well, what were they not believing? 16:15. Oh no, that's the wrong. Sorry, the wrong verse here. Yes, it was Mark 6:6, and he marveled because of their unbelief. Well, what were they not believing? They were not believing the truth about him. So what were they believing? See, we make a choice to believe the world, to believe God. This is adultery, right? When we choose to say, I don't want you, I want the world. We're judging according to the world instead of understanding according to God's judgment. It's complicated. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, guys. But one thing I know, shake the dust from your feet. Because there are a lot of people out there that you need to serve. Whatever way God calls you to serve, we're all different. We all have a specific gifting, a specific calling, and that can change. And I tell people I'm whatever he wants me to be, whenever he wants me to be it, because he gives me whatever I need to do at that moment. I don't need to carry anything with me. It doesn't matter because I'm going to have what I need at the moment that I need it. I'll even have the ability at the moment that I need it. So I don't need to even worry about it. He'll prepare me. He'll do everything. I just got to show up and do what I need to do, right? I don't need to worry. But if I don't shake that dust off, and there's a lot of dust, if I don't shake it off, I'm going to take that to the next place. That judgment is going to follow me. I can't allow that. So I reject it so that I don't accept it and fall under its spell. Heaven forbid believing the lies that are cast upon me. But more than that, by rebuking it, by shaking it off of me, it allows me to be cleansed of it so that others will not fall under the spell of judgment. I mean, this is how I'm interpreting this. I could be wrong. So if you guys think that I am, please share with me. I want to know. I want to know. More than anything, I want to know the truth. Even if it means I'm wrong. Even if it means what I thought I understood was wrong, I would rather have the truth. And that's what it takes. What if Peter had thought, well, he's a prophet, and was too afraid to let go of his belief, his judgment, to accept the truth of who he was? Messiah, Jesus Messiah. You know, I'm speculating. I don't know what Peter thought about him. I'm just saying. What if the disciples said, oh, I'm going to take what these other people say, these other judgments. What did Jesus say? Who do you say I am? Do you love the truth? And do you love me? Because if you love the truth and you love me, you will see me accurately. That goes for everybody. If you love the truth and love the person, you will be able to see them accurately. You may not understand what you're seeing, but you will see it. I was told once, well, it doesn't matter. But it's possible. You can see people accurately, but only if you love the truth. So let's go back to the love of the truth. And as I was talking about this, I remembered that verse. So I'm going to go to 2 Thessalonians and read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I'm going to start in verse 9. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power and signs and wonders of falsehood, and with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. And for this reason Elohim sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood. Why not just stay in the city where they didn't receive you? Why? Why not stay in the city till they believe you and see the miracles that you're performing in Yeshua's name? Like, why not stay? Right? Because we want to save everyone. We want everyone to be saved. Not that we can save them, but I don't want to give up on anyone. I know I don't. God didn't give up on me. God didn't give up on me. I don't want to give up on anybody. And you know what? That gets me into an awful lot of trouble. Because I don't. I don't give up. I'm relentless. And my heart breaks because I want everyone to see the truth and to be saved and to love each other. I want that. I want that so badly. God, forgive me for that desire because it's just not necessarily going to happen. So let me read this. So in this section of Thessalonians, it goes on to explain, after we read about in verse 10, and with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. And for this reason Elohim sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood, in order that all should be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in the unrighteousness. But we ought to give thanks to Elohim always for you, brothers, beloved by the Master, because Elohim from the beginning chose you to be saved in set apartness of spirit and belief in the truth. Set apartness of spirit and belief of the truth. Guys, you can believe a lie, a falsehood, even if it's not bad, right? What if somebody just, what if somebody just said, Jesus is just a prophet? But that's not true. I mean, it's true, but it's not true. He's a Messiah, right? You can believe something that is not true that isn't necessarily a bad thing. We do it all the time. We make excuses for each other. Oh, they didn't mean it that way. When in fact they did mean it that way. It's okay to say they meant it that way. It's okay. Just to see it for the truth of it without judgment. But we have to be thankful to the Lord. Even then. You know, because I just want everyone to know that truth and that love of the truth, but you can't make someone love the truth. So we can't make somebody love the truth, but we have to love it. So that when we're asked, who do you say I am? We can actually see through the Lord's eyes with understanding. It might be limited. It is limited. We are human. But to be like Peter, to see Messiah, to be like those spies, to be like Rahab, and to be like the people of the cities that didn't reject the apostles, the disciples, you know, we have to love the truth. And when we do, we'll be able to say, you're the Messiah. We'll be able to say, we can overcome that. We'll be able to say, whatever, because we'll have His understanding. The same knowledge as the world has, but with the love of the truth, we can have understanding.